Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to help you get the most out of your grappling ability and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJ Brick Podcast, episode 370. Today we have The Art of War, Chapter 3, about Stratagem. Joe, what do we have?
Strategy versus Stratagem. How you guys doing?
Man, doing good. Finally get back together and chatting on here. It's good to be chatting with you guys.
Yep, I'm ready to throw out some strategy and trying to trick Byron a little bit today.
It's not that difficult, Gary. You need to set your bar a little higher. But we'll start the bar high with a quote from Albert Einstein. And I always hesitate on bringing somebody, like a famous quote in, because I just found out on Google, and maybe, Einstein didn't have this quote about the internet that I thought he did. But anyway, no, I assume this is him. It was a good site. Mr. Einstein said, "No amount of experimentation can ever prove me right. A single experiment can prove me wrong." And I think have felt this many times on the mat. And sometimes you think of rolling as kind of an experiment. What are you working on? What is your game? And how does that match up with the other person and what they're working on and what they're doing? And sometimes you roll with somebody and it goes really good for you, and maybe they are working on a weak part of their game, and sometimes you roll with the same person a week later and it just falls apart. Or maybe you go compete and you have a really good tournament and you do really well and it's a big tournament, and then you go to a smaller tournament and it goes poorly, or like they're just kind of experiments that you're just matching your game up against somebody else's. And if you just take like a good move, it could submission or a sweep or something, and let's just say you're at the gym and anytime you get this triangle set up, you get the triangle, it's case closed, you got it. And it's basically everybody at the gym it works on great, and you've competed a bunch and it works great. That doesn't prove that you're doing it perfectly. And then you go against somebody else, and it doesn't need to be like a higher level person, just a different person. And you try that technique and they pass your guard. Okay, that's the experiment failing. It's not that the move is garbage. It's not that you'll never figure this out again, or this person has the total answer for it, but it's just a different problem than you've dealt with, maybe, or they've dealt with this with a version of your triangle even better than yours, and they have the answer for that. So that's when your experiment fails, you need to just go back and evaluate it a little bit. I like that because no matter who you tap out with your submission or who you sweep with that beautiful setup that you have, or whatever technique you do, you build confidence and you build some faith in it. But eventually somebody's going to figure it out a little bit better than everybody else had, and you have to go back to the drawing board a bit and make some adjustments. And that's when, like Einstein says, a single experiment can prove me wrong. A single roll with somebody can show some light in a dark area of your technique that needs a little bit of tweaking or adjustment. Any thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Well, I think always having the belief that you could be wrong is important. I mean, there once was a time where it was quote unquote settled science that the universe revolved around the Earth, and that was proven wrong. There was a time when the Earth was considered to be settled science, and that was proven wrong.
And then that was
I disagree. I disagree.
Well, and
I like
if
it too.
if you have those kind of misguided thoughts and you hold to them, you end up having nothing better going on in your life than being part of a podcast with two other guys. But really, all throughout history, you see where there have been things that were solidly believed, people thought were proven to be true, and then it turned out to not be true. And I think that if we have that same mentality within our jiu-jitsu, not just individual moves, but the way we approach the game, the strategies that we use, the game plans that we have. As our bodies change and our understanding of jiu-jitsu changes, as the game in general changes, and our training partners and opponents get better and have a better understanding of jiu-jitsu, if we don't change and evolve with it, we'll end up being part of the Flat Earth Society. So I think that's a great quote, Byron.
Yeah, Brian, I was sitting there thinking. No, seriously, Brian, you were talking about when it doesn't work, it's a failure. You go back to the drawing board. And, I guess I don't look at it that way. I look at it that, I tried the triangle on Byron and Brian passed me. And, established side control, and I got beat right there. I look at it as, hey, I'm just going to get better. I don't know. I guess I don't really use the word failure much, try not to. And I just look at it that, hey, man, this is awesome, because now I got to figure out another way to attack Brian and make him fall to my triangle.
Whoever this Brian guy is sounds really cool. No, I think we're agreeing, Gary. It's just the way you frame it, though, is a little different. Where
I just don't like the word failure.
Yeah. Well, I'm failing to connect with you, I think.
Yeah.
But use the word failure.
Going back to what Joe said, let's play a little game right here. We're talking about old stuff that has been debunked. Do you guys believe in the Loch Ness Monster? Brian? Byron?
Oh, yeah. I would say probably not. I haven't looked at that at all, but I put him up there with Bigfoot.
Joe?
I would say probably not.
Yeah, me too. And question number 2. I just wanted to see if you guys believed in any of this stuff. The Bermuda Triangle. Like, this one may be a little closer to Joe because Joe is actually a mariner, but I do not believe in it.
What do you not believe in?
I want to say that I've heard things about the magnetic field, and I want to say there are reasons why that myth has been perpetuated. And
well, remember when we were growing up, Joe? It just seemed like people were getting lost in that area all the time. You just don't ever hear about it. Is it because we don't fly over there?
We use satellite technology instead of compasses, Gary. And it's not. I agree with you. It's not really a triangle. It's more of a misshapen square. It's a little bit jagged, I guess. So triangle is not accurate, but no, I don't know, Gary.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Sorry for derailing it. I just wanted to play a quick game.
What else you got, Gary?
That's good. We can go back.
We could get onto these little spacecrafts that the government can't figure out.
Yeah, that's a good one right there. We could have a whole show on that.
Yes, we could. Maybe next time.
Do you really think? Do you think? So you think about people talking about maybe these aliens have come to visit us. Government can't say they're UFOs. They don't really know what they are. I mean, you think about the jiu-jitsu game. Maybe these are people from another planet coming looking for an open mat. Who knows?
I think we're finally getting to where they're wanting to know some of our techniques.
Yeah.
And so they're just kind of observing right now.
Yeah. So what we can say, if anybody from another planet happens to be listening, we would like to roll and exchange techniques. So next time you come to Wichita, Kansas, or Lake Jackson, Texas, hit us up. We'd definitely be down to roll. We can do it in your spacecraft or at our gym, whatever works for you.
Yeah, at my school on Wednesdays, all law enforcement and extraterrestrials train for free. So that'd be a good day to drop by.
Nice.
Yeah, and maybe we could even exchange T-shirts.
There you go.
Or probes.
Okay, sorry for derailing, Brian.
Okay. All right, I had a quick off-the-mat lesson to change the topic entirely. The other day, I was mowing. Outside is where I usually will mow. And I noticed that the side of my house, I have a 2-story house, and the side of my house was dripping water. I was like, and it took me a sec. I look at it, I'm like, that's weird. Oh, that's bad. So I immediately ran inside, and there's water dripping down out of my ceiling in my kitchen, and I ran downstairs and I turned the water off, and then I went up and I had a broken pipe connection. And I had a big mess. I mean, I don't know if this water was going for 5 or 10 minutes. It wasn't a long time. Luckily, I was going to go to jiu-jitsu within the hour, and luckily I wasn't at jiu-jitsu. It would have flowed that water for 2.5 hours. So it was more like 5 minutes, maybe 10. And I get my shot vac, and within 3 minutes, I call my brother, who works within a mile of where I'm at, and he was there within 5 minutes. He goes, I'll be there right away, and he helped kind of get me set up to get minimize the damage. But it wasn't a huge mess. Like Joe's had a pretty big situation, and I just was thinking, like, I'm really lucky that my brother was really close. But if I had just moved to Wichita here, and I didn't have family here, the jiu-jitsu people that I would know would be pretty much high on that list as far as, okay, who lives close? I got to get a hold of somebody to come help me because I'm having a situation. And Joe could testify that's when, like, the team aspect kind of rolls in. And if you have a teammate that's having trouble or that is having a bit of a situation, that's a person that needs help. That's what you do. And it's sometimes it's strange to ask for the help, but man, it feels really good to the people that are actually able to help you. So it takes both. But if, like, the same way that if somebody else's house had flooded or, a fire damage or whatever, if somebody from the gym can spend half a day or a few bucks to get something, a meal, or like, it feels really good to help somebody who's in need of help. And I just was like, that's the people and the bonds you make on the mats. A lot of those people who would be on that short list of phone calls would be from the jiu-jitsu community. So I'm lucky I literally have my brother is within a mile. But if not, I'm just saying jiu-jitsu would have provided a pretty quick answer as well.
Like you say, I had the same thing happen to me, just when I moved. And, not a lot of people really want to help you move, but I actually had to turn people away. I had so many, that team atmosphere, people wanting to help, a training partner.
I've always had this philosophy or this idea that part of the reason why we develop such strong friendships in jiu-jitsu is because you can't bullshit people in jiu-jitsu. You're there to grapple, and it doesn't do any good to try and pretend you're better than you are or hide your weaknesses because they're exposed right away. And I think that just sort of then defines our friendships with the people on the mats, and that and of course the difficulty of the sport. So great story, Byron.
Well, thank you, Joe, and we got pretty lucky here. Very minimal damage from what it could have been. What
if it happened at 2 a.m. while you were sleeping?
What if it would have happened while I was at work and not coming back for,
4 hours?
Yeah, or if I were on vacation. And that's another thing that my wife mentioned. Some people turn their water off when they go to vacation. I'm not going to be one of those people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we were pretty fortunate. Let's jump into this chapter 3 here of The Art of War. That's why people have shown up for this. They're very excited, I know. If you have missed the first 2 chapters, The Art of War is an ancient text which was once verbal and passed down in China through the military leaders, and it's just kind of a strategy book that transcends military, and it's really plug it into anything where there's strategy involved. And chapter 3 is about stratagem. And we'll just quickly cover this. A strategy is a plan of action to accomplish a goal. Now, a stratagem is a clever scheme. So you're going to be deceiving somebody with a stratagem. They are both relevant to jiu-jitsu. I always smile when I see a stratagem in play. When somebody's tricking somebody, when somebody's being deceptive, that's interesting. That's clever. That's the art of war at its best, I think.
I think that's what jiu-jitsu is all about, really tricking people, especially if you have, a couple evenly matched people or somebody, better. You're not just going to reach out and go for your first limb, that arm, and grab a wrist lock or a Kimura. You're going to have to throw some stratagem in there to trick your opponent.
Yeah, you might try a Kimura from your guard and then try another one from your guard, and then the next time you set it up and you do the sweep instead, but they defend the Kimura. That's by design. You're like, I'm going to trick him this third time because the first two didn't work, but he defended it well. And we do that all the time without thinking about it.
Yeah, for me, that's when jiu-jitsu started getting fun. I remember when I first started training, it was, I guess I had a strategy in my head. I'm going to slap Byron's hand, give him a fist bump, and then I'm going to go straight for the Kimura. And I would just go and go and go, be totally one-minded, looking for that limb. And, it would lead to a ton of roadblocks, a ton of walls that I was going up against and nothing would get done. And once I, started getting a little bit better, I just loved the trickery part, trying to get somebody to think you're going for a sweep and you get the Kimura or vice versa. And that's when it really got fun. And I want to go back to what you said, Byron. You said it kind of makes you laugh or smile. I don't remember your exact wording, but how many times have you been caught in the middle of a sweep that you didn't see coming? And in the middle of that sweep, you just got a big smile on your face as your opponent sweeps you. And you're just thinking in your head, man, that was awesome. Great job.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do enjoy being surprised by technique on the mat. And that's stratagem there. So for this, we do jump around a little bit. I have some stuff here from chapter 8, I'll try to say where the stuff is coming from out of the Art of War. But chapter 8, line 2, Sun Tzu is talking about hemmed in situations. So you could think of like military situation where you're like pinned down, it's not going well. He says you must resort to stratagem. And I think of this as if you're going to grapple somebody who's actually better than you should be using stratagem. Like you could be, back in the day, I signed up for a tournament as a blue belt, and they threw a purple belt in there because he had nobody else to have a match with. That's early, jiu-jitsu, and it was in Oklahoma, but in kind of the Midwest there, it's like, oh, who's this purple belt? He has nobody to fight. Like he's that much ahead of the curve. And now there'd be a dozen of them from the have match. He had his own age category. He didn't have anybody, not only in his weight class, but he had nobody. And they threw him in with the blue belts, and he beat me pretty solidly, so that was fun. But if I were to stand a chance at beating a better grappler, a trick or two up my sleeve. Well, bless you guys.
Bless you, Joe.
Was that me?
What's that mean? Anyway, if you were to beat somebody like that, which is perfectly, it's possible, it's difficult, but if you could trick them, that does help quite a bit as far as beating a better grappler. And man, what a tremendous victory that is when it happens. So like just a hemmed in situation, just a tough spot. It could be a position, it could be a whole other person, which is just a better technical grappler. Trick them. Use some stratagem. It'll work out possibly better. But it's a good attempt.
You could bring a big old Trojan horse, like just 4 or 5 stories tall, to the next kingdom, and fill it with your warriors, with your army, and then when that kingdom goes to sleep, you let those guys out and you take over. Stratagem.
Gary, that is a brilliant move.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from. But
man, you should have been. I feel like you're in the wrong era. You would have been a mastermind. So in that same chapter 8, he talks about, this is line 6, a student of war who is unversed in the art of varying his plans will fail to make the best use of his men. And he's just talking about the commander position as far as moving people around and getting them to do certain things. If you always do the same thing, there'll be times when that's not the best thing to do. And so just to have that game plan, have that what you're going to do. But if you are always stuck to that, you could hit a situation where that's not the best, and it may or may not work. But being able to vary your plan a little bit or adjust things to fit another person, that's going to work out better for you in the long run. So let's see here. We'll skip over to chapter 11. This is chapter 3 of the Art of War, as we've talked about that very little bit. But talking about just stratagem and where I found it in the Art of War. If asked how to cope with a great host of the enemy in orderly array and on the point of marching to the attack, I should say begin by seizing something which your opponent holds dear. And Sun Tzu did this, and I'll kind of, I don't know how well I read that to you guys. Like, if you're going to be attacked by a stronger opponent, or on the battlefield and you're outnumbered, or they're just a better army, whatever. Sun Tzu, what he did, he was outnumbered. I don't know if it's 10-1 or something like that. He sent a small force, and they seized some supplies like behind enemy lines. And that caused a lot of confusion in the enemy. And they broke up. A good portion of them went back to fight that fight, which was over before they got there. And it pretty much diverted the entire attack, which would have been a disaster to Sun Tzu's army. And so if you could see something that your opponent holds dear, that will help you greatly. So if your opponent needs to get to mount, it's good to know that. If their best move is that, can you prevent that? Can you? I remember watching somebody compete against Hodger, and Hodger got to mount, and then he gave him his back, and then he got out of the back control, and I thought that was amazing because you're going to get tapped when Hodger's in mount, but he was able to escape his back control. And so, what did Hodger hold dear? And I'm really butchering this because I don't remember who that was. He holds dear the mount position, which he was able to pretty much do on everybody. But if you could get out of that, which technically going from mount to back is a bad idea, but it was his only really option. So if your opponent needs to control your collar and sleeve or to wrap you up in some sort of a lapel thing or something like that, don't let that happen. Take that away. Or start with something that doesn't allow that to happen at all. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I like that. The illustration, the example, I guess you brought about Hodger. If Hodger gets mount, you're in major trouble. Even though giving up the back may not be the best idea for 99 out of 100 of your matches, but Hodger, that's his spot. And this guy's probably got a lot better escapes his opponent from back control. I mean, he took a risk and put himself in that position, but maybe it's a better strength for him to escape, and maybe Hodger's just not as good on the back. Well, I can't ever say Hodger's not good anywhere, but maybe you're better escaping the back. But I can think of a time here not too long ago. I was rolling with a guy who had side control on me, and it was really tight side control. And instead of I couldn't shrimp in, so I shrimped away. The guy took my back, and I always thought I had pretty good back escapes, and that was a nightmare. I was brutalized. But I like that example you used there, Byron.
Okay, thanks, Gary. I feel bad because I don't know who it was, and I should, but it's been lost to my foggy memory. I'll pull another thing out of chapter 11. This is line 37. By altering his arrangements and changing his plans, he keeps the enemy without definite knowledge. And I read that, and I think about, you never really have the same rule twice. because you're always picking up information. Even if just your training partners who you roll with, multiple times a week, you're always learning little tidbits and adjusting. And you're not just learning about your own game, you're learning about their game. And so to think that I could roll with Joe today and then Joe tomorrow, it might be a very similar roll, but it's not the same. We've both made adjustments on what we had learned, even if it's at the unconscious level. Even if it's when Joe, gets to my half guard and he starts to get through it, like I kind of remember, oh, yeah, this is horrible last time. I got to get out of here. I think about, you shouldn't get bored with your training partners. Even if you have the same training partners over and over again, you guys should be pushing each other and getting each other to change and adjust, through the process of sparring and doing jiu-jitsu.
Well, I think that is the essence of jiu-jitsu. Always looking for new ways to do stuff, always looking for new ways to counter. And to me, I personally love it when I have a really go-to move, so-called a brick, and my opponent easily gets past it. I just love going back to the drawing board and figuring out ways to make that, stick and be able to work, the next time. And then it just keeps my game evolving. It keeps making me better. It makes it so you don't rest on your laurels, that you have to reverse engineer everything and figure out how to make this work. Because there's no one way to pass a guard. There's no one way to escape a triangle. There's numerous ways, and the infinite possibilities where you can learn ways to attack and ways to strengthen your defense.
So Gary, in that example where your brick did not work, would you say that it failed?
I know you're trying to drag me down what I was talking about earlier, but to me, that's not failure. I love that situation because now it's fun. Now I have to evolve my game. And this is the way I look at it. Like, now I have to evolve my game. And then, let's say 4 or 5 more times, that guy passes me a couple times, 4 or 5 times. And then the 5th time I get it to work. The 6th time I get it to work. Now the ball's in that person's court. He's now going to have to reverse engineer and figure out how to approach this. And then next thing you know, it's back on me. And I just love, it just seems like it takes my game to another level. You always trying new stuff. So yeah, definitely not a failure. But I guess in Sun Tzu's avenue, that could be a failure because I would be dead.
It wasn't a failure, Byron. Gary just discovered another opportunity to learn.
There you go. I remember that there's a quote. It might have been Anders Ericsson or maybe Daniel Coyle or Malcolm Gladwell. Practice, try, fail. Practice, try, fail better. Like, it's never easy. But if you continue to make less of mistakes and miss the target, closer and closer to not missing the target, that's what you want.
Yeah, I think it was Albert Einstein, and he was the guy that brought us the quote of the show anyway, but I think he one time had like X number of failures inventing the light bulb. It was in the hundreds, and he said, I didn't fail 100 times. I learned 100 ways not to make a light bulb, or something of that regard. Gary, I wanted to comment on something you said. You talked about your brick lets you down, so to speak, and you go back to the drawing board and you refine it and you keep looking for ways to improve it. But also along the lines of a stratagem, it's cool to replay how your brick was let you down, and not just try and improve it, but think about maybe opportunities your opponent gave you while they were passing your guard or while they were defending, because you talk about surprises on the mat and how it's nice to get that sweep that you weren't expecting. But it's also always kind of makes me chuckle at myself when I'm in the middle of thinking, I defended that really well, only to find myself in the next submission. So that's kind of that stratagem. Okay, so you can defend against my Kimura now, but guess what's next?
Yep. Yeah, I love that idea, Joe, and it's a big circle. Everybody's going after one thing, and I can think of this training partner I have. He hasn't been training very long, but nobody else would ever. Sometimes you roll like Byron was talking. No two rolls are never the same. You roll with a lot of the same partners. They may not see something they may not take advantage of, but the crazy thing is this guy's kind of new, and he's only been rolling like a year, but I always get caught in a Kimura with him. He sees every time my hand touches the mat. Every time I go for a single leg on him, he goes for a Kimura trap. And it's cool because now I'm getting in that position, and I'm trying so hard not to put my hand where it was. And it's hard, because I've been in such a habit of doing it, but nobody punished me for it. And then all of a sudden we get a new guy coming along, and he's punishing me for it. And when I say new, he hasn't been training as long. His skill level is not as high as the rest of my training partners, but it just shows anybody, can take it. You can learn from anybody. You can get better by training with anybody. And he's the one who shown me that I'm doing something wrong. So now I'm trying to use some stratagem to trick him.
Well, it sounds like he's taken a fundamental and really internalized it. There's that fundamental concept that when your opponent puts his hand on the mat from certain positions, that's a very vulnerable thing. And it sounds like
it's crazy. He's catching it from everywhere. It's pretty weird. But it's making my game better because, even rolling yesterday with him, I had to a couple times I went to plant my hand off a single leg from the mat, and I was like, oh, wait, I can't plant my hand, so I'm trying to figure it out. But I can honestly say he did still catch me one Kimura yesterday, so, I still haven't worked all the bugs out, but it's fun. I like it when somebody exposes a flaw in a position or of my game.
There you go. I can't. Flaw's okay, but failure of your game is not.
Gary's been exposed and he likes it.
He did it on himself.
I just need to get the vaccine.
Okay.
So I had an example when I was putting this together of Stratagem working on me, and I just really enjoyed it. And it's something anybody can do. So I was at Fox Fitness training, and this is a couple years ago, and we were doing a sweep, and it was a gi technique, and it's one of these sweeps that's got 10 steps. It's control the person like this, get them to move their foot over here, grab the foot, and then do this, and then off balance them over here, and then take them this way. Some sweeps are pretty simple, and some sweeps are a lot of steps. And so all the technique portion of the class, we're doing basically this technique, and we're really figuring it out. We're working the kinks out. We're doing some light sparring from these positions, and it's a good sweep. And technique portion over, time to roll. I get a round in, I get a second round in, I get a third round coming in, and I think it was probably a blue belt at the time, and we start rolling, and he starts going for these positions, and he's working his way through the sweeps. He's doing the initial setup, and then breaking my grip, and then he a little bit of problems that he's solving along the way, and he's getting to be 80% where this sweep is going to work. And I know what he's doing because we just did this thing 30 times or for 30 minutes before this. And then he triangles me, which is not at all what he should have done. That was awesome. I was led down a path to know that the sweep was going to be very hard to defend, and he would probably get the sweep, and I was going to be happy that he did it, that he learned this move today and also pulled it off on a black belt. But then he slapped that triangle on, which I did not see coming, which I was not ready for, and it was deep. It was that was beautiful. That was stratagem, and I assume he did that on purpose. I assume he knew I would be defending the sweep. But I still remember that today. It was such a fun experience to get tricked so badly on the mats. And I think about that sometimes when we're learning the technique, or the position of the day, and where does coach take us through this thing. And he was probably thinking midway through, this sets up perfectly for my favorite setup for triangle or something like that. And so if you could get somebody, and I'm a pretty willing grappling training partner, to where if you're going to work the technique that we did today, we're going to get at least partially through it before I want to try to pass the guard or what, you know what I mean? Like I'll give him some a bit of an attempt. I'll make it sporting, but I won't just give him the sweep flat out. Like I will fight the sweep very hard, but he could have the setup sometimes. And he took something else. So you could do that to your coach. You could start to do the technique you learned of the day. You could do it to the upper belts. And then if you've seen something different, and I didn't see him practicing this, I think he just observed it was there, take it. And much like me, they will probably be defending the wrong thing. And when you're putting energy and effort to defending the wrong thing, it's a disaster because I wasn't at all defending or concerned about a triangle attack. So I really enjoy that story. It's one of my more enjoyable times I've been tricked on the mats. And the setup was the technique portion. It wasn't anything we did earlier in that role. It was just the whole class was built around fooling me. It seemed like. So try that on your friends and see if they get good times out of that. Maybe just you'll get good times out of that.
Byron, I love hearing stories that come out of the kids' class. So that was kind of neat to hear.
Not just tapped, outsmarted by the kids.
Yeah. But hey, here I am derailing us again, but isn't it crazy when you watch some of these young and up-and-comers, on Who's Number One, Fight to Win, and all this stuff, that they got these 14-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids, and just going out and destroying top-level adults. It's kind of crazy the way these youngsters who've been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time can get so good.
Yeah, it just shows that there's definitely strength and experience involved, but a big part of our passion is technique and stratagem, and it's what's your game plan? What tricks do you have up your sleeve? How's this going to work against this person? And it's impressive to watch. So we bump into, let's see here. I'm trying to figure out where this is from in The Art of War. I didn't make a good note on this one. But he talks about, I think this is line 2 or in chapter, something like that. It says, to fight and conquer all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Now, this isn't what you're typically... What was that, Gary?
Yeah. This goes back to, taking their supplies. They don't have anything to eat. They're freezing. You took their coats. You took their ammo. And you're going to break their resistance, and you don't even have to spill any bullets, per se.
Yeah, or take away the reason. But it doesn't really work in jiu-jitsu because we want to get on the mats and have good quality rounds or matches or fights, whatever you're doing. You want good opposition. It's fun. It's enjoyable. But for self-defense, this is perfect.
Yeah, but go back to jiu-jitsu, though. Sometimes you get broken mentally. I think we've all went against somebody who's just got great top pressure and they break mentally, and I want to get the freak out of there. It's brutal. And, you think of passing sometimes. Sometimes you're so smashed up on a smash pass that you're just praying that they hurry up and pass to take some pressure off. And I don't mind losing. No problem with that. I mind when my mind gets beat, when I break down mentally. That's when I have issues.
To boil that quote down, I mind when my mind gets broken down mentally. That's some deep stuff, Gary. I love it. That's good. That's gonna be on a T-shirt someday.
Hey, though, make sure, because I know you were talking about earlier about quotes you don't know who to attribute to.
Yes,
That's my quote.
Yep.
I mind when I mind when my mind gets broken.
Mentally.
Mentally.
I just want to pull us into self-defense real quick with Sun Tzu's thing about breaking their resistance and to win without fighting. If you could all take away the reason somebody wants to attack you, that's a better way to do it. You know, if I'm at the bar, which, you know, good luck finding me there, but, you know, I step on, let's say I bump into Joe and I spill his root beer all over his shirt. And
oh, you're done.
And so Joe is getting ready to attack me, right? Like, so I could
buy him another root beer.
Puff my chest out and try to, you know, like, here, try to be macho. Or I have another option to be like, man, I'm so sorry. Let me buy you another drink. Let me get your buddies around, and you know, and I got a shirt out in my vehicle. I'm gonna grab you a new shirt. Like, I don't know what, like, take away the reason, and largely in that situation,
for everyone.
Root beers for everyone.
That's right.
Sarsaparillas.
Around on me.
But it's just like,
maybe even get him a root beer float.
Oh, now let's not go overboard. Now Gary's a peacemaker.
Not only will I not fight you, but we'll be best friends if you buy me a root beer float.
Okay, I like this.
Man.
But I mean, if you're able, okay, that situation, Joe's kind of embarrassed and he feels obligated. And I can't read your mind, obviously, and not talking literally Joe, but he feels obligated to show that he's, you know, tougher or bigger, or nobody does this to me. And if it's if a quick apology and a few bucks and being humble gets me out of having to possibly send one of us to the hospital, if not both, and have to buy new pants, possibly both.
Would you buy new pants because you both pulled guard and you're butt scooting across the floor?
I just can't always deal with the stains I end up getting in them. I'm just scared, man. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, like, take away the reason to fight. And that's better than the actual fight. And that's what Sun Tzu is advocating. And when you look at his situation, going to war, like, take away the reason for them to fight you. You know, maybe trade is a better situation for both countries instead of war. You know, hey, we need their oil. Let's go get it. Actually, maybe they're good with trading for that, and nobody dies, and our army actually grows stronger, and we have an ally, which is good for us now instead of an enemy. Like, better for everybody.
Yeah. I like that, Byron. Yeah, give them your wives, and you know, and then that's better, and they'll be okay with that.
Then they got to deal with that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Well, then you won't have to listen to nagging all the time.
Oh, man.
Man, I hope my wife's not listening to this.
Nobody does, Carrie, so no stress. we do have 3 wonderful wives, though. I should have said 2. Would have been funnier.
Yeah.
But I was being serious.
Would have got one of us in trouble.
Or you could have said 4.
Oh.
Yeah.
Our wives and our girlfriends are great.
I'm out on that.
Hey, you know, Byron, though, about your stratagem and self-defense, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. If you could de-escalate immediately, that's the best. But I've always told people when it comes to self-defense that, you know, if you can't take away the reason to fight and it's starting to look like there's going to be a fight, and I think this falls under that stratagem a little bit, I always tell people that before the first punch is thrown, I want to be in a good defensive position. I want, you know, to be in a fighter stance with my hands up. And there's two ways I can do that. I can either ball my fist and step forward with my left foot, which is obviously going to escalate the situation. But I'm accomplishing the same thing from a physical standpoint if I put my hands up in a I don't want to fight gesture and step back with my right foot. So without giving them the impression that I want to fight, I've put myself in a better position to defend myself. The first thing I'm always going to do is step back with my right foot, put my hands up, palms facing them, and say, look, I don't want any trouble here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
good.
like that, Joe. And, that just the example you brought up, Byron, is a little bit tougher, too, because we're in a bar and there's probably alcohol involved. And, alcohol can make it a little tougher to de-escalate. And like you were talking, Joe, if it looks like it might go down that path and you're in a bar with alcohol involved, if you do the step forward and put your fists up in a fighting stance, it's probably time to tango. You still got a lot better chance putting your hands up. Oh, no. But you take that step back, but you're still ready. You have now created space in case that guy does, try to swing at you. You've created some space, but your hands are up, ready to protect your head. You already got your feet in the right position in case something does happen. But the best thing is root beers for everyone.
I agree wholeheartedly.
On me. No, maybe a different example, but the same idea. It would be, and I'm fortunate have never had this, but like you always hear about like the Thanksgiving meal is, I say meal or meal? I can't even say it. The Thanksgiving feast is ruined by people basically fighting or actually fighting that are family members. And to like avoid that, like how far does an apology go? Like that's a good apology. Not like, hey man, sorry I made fun of your, the way your face is, or like just to give it a real apology, immediately as soon as you figured out that you've made a foul, like to avoid that right away is huge. Or to have thick skin. If one of your family members hurt your feelings, you could let them know that, man, that hurt. I really respect your opinion, and you said that about me. That hurts, man. But whether they accept it or not, have that thick skin and let it roll off your shoulders, of the thick skin shoulders that you have, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, I've never been in that situation because I've been fortunate to have family members that get along. But at work, I've seen that before. I've gone to assault calls that were on Thanksgiving or Christmas, and it's like, oh man, this is really sad. Like, this is our family that got together and grandma made dinner, and now her sons are literally trying to send each other to the hospital. Okay.
So Byron, at all those calls you've been to, how many of them did not involve at least one person having too much alcohol?
They probably all do.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a key ingredient to those stories, I think, most of the time.
Yeah, but they also involve somebody like I said, like grandma made dinner, grandma wanting to get her family together, and the sons haven't seen each other forever, and they're mad at each other about when dad died, who got the inheritance, or so, like things like that. Like, people are mad about stuff, and yeah, maybe you put two people in the wrong room together, and it just is going to be bad. But to avoid the fight is a better move.
I can tell you, since starting martial arts, since starting jiu-jitsu, I would be less apt to fight in just about any situation.
And less apt to lose.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. No, but I'm not going to lose by not fighting. I mean, to be honest, before I would feel like I lost. Before I started jiu-jitsu, before I started martial arts, I would feel like, hey, a man needs to fight. That's, to be honest, kind of how I felt. If somebody challenges you. Now I have no problem walking away. I'm going to do everything possible, kind of like what you guys were talking about. I'm going to try to de-escalate the situation. I'm going to try to anything possible to get out of that and walk the other way, and I'll feel great about it. I'll have no issues. Last thing I want to do is have to get in a fight where somebody could get hurt or ruin family relationships. And I've been lucky too. Family that we don't have that. But And I guess nobody in my family really drinks a lot because I totally agree with what Joe says. I think the majority of those are, due to alcohol with people not acting reasonably.
So maybe the on this example is if you know you're going to be at the event with your cousin who you cannot stand, maybe don't drink.
Have root beer.
Yeah.
Root beer for everyone.
And if they're drinking pretty heavy, maybe you stand on the side of the room, or maybe you leave early. Or maybe if your drunk cousin is insulting you, you take that with a grain of salt and it's like, well, he's mostly drunk.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, thick skin is right. And like I said, I think jiu-jitsu has really made my skin thicker, not from rubbing it on the mat, but just more confidence. It's like, why do I worry about what somebody else has said? It has made me a more self-confident person, jiu-jitsu has. And where I don't really worry about what other people say about me. And who knows, maybe it's not jiu-jitsu. Maybe it's just I've got older and wiser, hopefully. But I don't know. I contribute a lot to jiu-jitsu.
Just today, like kind of what you're saying, I'm not really afraid of people. Just today, we went to a barbecue place, and there were these 4 people sitting at the table, and they had an insane amount of food. They had probably 10 pounds of meat. They had 3 plates that had buns stacked like 4 high on them. They probably had 30 buns. They had side dishes that were in giant containers. It was ridiculous. And I went up to him, I go, man, I'm sitting at the wrong table. Like, this is probably a bad idea. Like, if they look friendly, but like, I'm going up there, I'm teasing strangers. And he goes, yeah, I ordered the wrong thing. And I guess I ordered like some big family gathering thing. This is just like 3 hours before we started recording this. It was funny. Like, the amount of bread he had was ridiculous. But I went up there and I teased a stranger, and I no way thought that he would react violently, but I just didn't cross my mind. Like, I was gonna have fun with this, and I wanted to know the story, and he did.
You've always been like that, Byron. Like, you're always joking and never afraid to talk to anybody. But I just think your jovial nature makes it easy for you.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're, and to be honest, you're not intimidating looking. I mean, I hate to really.
That's true.
You're not. I don't mean anything bad, but I'd hate to have to get in a fight with you because it probably is not going to end well for me.
A balding middle-aged man is. I'm going from scrawny. I'm going from a scrawny body type to kind of pudgy.
What do you mean balding?
Balded.
So, to change the topic here.
Byron, we were talking about you the other day. We're rolling. And somebody said he's probably the strongest guy I've ever tied up with. Like, you're talking about being scrawny to pudgy. You got that match strength. That's freaking insane. I wish I had it. You should do a audiobook about that.
Yet again, Gary, like I was earlier, you were rolling in the kids' class, that sounds like.
Yeah. No, I'm not messing with you.
Well, thank you, Gary.
Man, when you get a tie, like you get a collar tie on me, I'm like, whoa, what the freak? Am I rolling with Harambe?
I'm taking this as a compliment, but to call me strong on the mats isn't always a compliment.
No, I mean, you're very technical too, but I would, I've rolled with a lot of people, and when you tie up, and not everybody ties up really strong, but when you tie up, I feel like I'm tangling with a silverback.
Well, the thing is,
I'm getting gray.
The thing is, Byron, here's the thing, and this is why you should take
your backs, Harry.
Joe, please.
This is why you should take it as a compliment, because it really is about technique. When you get in a collar tie, the way that you're holding your hand behind your opponent's neck, the angle of your arm, how close you are. I mean, there's so much technique, and it would be really hard to explain to somebody all the little details. But hours and hours and hours every month, month of the year for 12, 15 years in a row, you've just made so many small adjustments over those years. It really is the technique. I'm not saying you're not strong, but There's guys who I guarantee you are much stronger than you, and they just don't feel like it because they don't understand the positions.
You know, I haven't said this in a couple months, but Joe just won the internet.
I love it.
But Byron, normally I'm busting on you, but I did not mean that in a bad way.
I know, man. This is technique. Like make me feel good day over here. We should do this at least once a month.
I always got Brian. I'm always here to make you feel better.
All right, guys, let's go down to paragraph 3 in this thing that's got like chapter 3. We're not going to do paragraph 3 is pretty good. There's 18 little paragraphs in this thing. So I know we're not. It's fine. We're halfway ish through what we want to cover. But Sun Tzu talks about generalship, and it's just talking about like how you're going to run your army. And I have there's 4 different ways he talks about being a general and what you should be doing, and I'm going to relate each one to jiu-jitsu. And so he says the highest form of generalship is to balk the enemy's plans. So that's not letting the enemy do what they want to do. And the example I'm going to use here a few times is like Spider Guard. If your opponent wants to play Spider Guard, they never get to do it. Like, it could just mean that you pulled guard first, or you sliced through the guard before they got their grips, or you took them down directly in the side control. Like, that's perfect. That's a great match for you. So the next step down, the next best is to prevent the junction of the enemy's forces. And the Spider Guard example would be if they kind of get their Spider Guard set up, you have a choice whether to try to pass that guard or to reset the position and to just pass a guard, because the Spider Guard takes a little bit of work. I can maybe take a step back or break a few grips, and now you still have guard, but you don't have the guard that you wanted. So that's the next best thing. The third one on his list of these 4 here. The next in order is to attack the enemy's army in the field. And so this is literally what it sounds like is, Joe gets the Spider Guard going, and I'm going to decide to try to pass the Spider Guard. And we're going to kind of see what's going to happen. Who's got the better game plan here. And then the last one he has about the worst policy, this is for the general, is to attack besieged walled cities. So these are fortified locations. This is a horrible policy. Don't do it. And this is like attacking somebody from a bad position. If Joe if he's past my guard, he's got side control and mouse, and I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do wrist lock. That's kind of where that falls in. Like, I'm attacking a walled city. It's a bad plan. There's better ways to do this. You cut off supplies to that city. You do like you don't just send troops in to get murdered by their catapults or whatever they have to defend their city with. I guess you attack the city with catapults, but they're fortified defenses. Don't do that. You first have to deal with the position. So those are his. We're in chapter 3 here and paragraph 3, but those are his kind of 4 overall types of generalship, and I try to translate those a little bit to jiu-jitsu for you guys. Do those make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I think basically you're sort of dictating where the fight's fought from, the pace of the fight, the distance. If you're controlling all of those things, even if your opponent has more technique than you, knows more moves than you, if you can control those things, I think Bruce Lee said the guy that can control the distance and the timing and the tempo of a fight will usually win, all other things being equal, and actually you can overcome some disadvantages in technique if you can control those things.
Joe, I really like that quote there by Bruce Lee, and I'd like to throw another quote out there. I mind when my mind gets broken mentally.
Keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind.
Yep. Who said that? Was it Snoop Dogg?
I have no idea. Maybe.
Yeah.
Man, I'm having a good time today. Well, I don't mind
Imagine
if
how much better this show would be if I wasn't on here.
We would be missing a key element, that's for sure.
Yeah, nobody watches the Two Stooges.
Yeah. we need you, Gary. Anyway, if you don't mind, I'll jump down to line 7 here, and he talks about. I'm not going to read it word for word, but he talks about avoiding dulling the blade, and this could be mentally, Gary. But this could, I mean, like, so for jiu-jitsu, this could be, you get injured too much. And for me, this could happen. Like, I basically don't get injured in doing jiu-jitsu. And I have a few tricks for this and a few things I do. But if I can't do my job if I'm injured. And I definitely wouldn't do this if I was injured on a regular basis, because I would find a new job, I guess. And that's, I mean, anyway, so avoid getting injuries would dull the blade for me. It could see the same thing, like somebody, and I'm always a little nervous when a new student wants to go compete, because if they lose, is their blade going to be dull? Are they going to stop jiu-jitsu because, oh man, I suck. I thought I was doing good, but I suck. No, that's not what just happened. The other guy just had a good day, or maybe he is technically better than you, but it's hard to compare yourself as a new student to somebody who maybe a white belt also, but maybe they're really close to blue, or maybe they wrestled their whole life, or it's hard to compare. So that sometimes will dull somebody's blade, or maybe they feel like they shouldn't have got promoted to the next belt level, and it's just really hard. Like, yeah, you got your whatever belt, but you sure can't hang with those people very well, and it's just tough being that belt. That will dull your blade. And so these are all kind of, you have to mind mentally about what's going to happen, and just kind of be cautious of that and look out for it in your teammates. But for me, my biggest thing that could dull my blade, I do think, would probably be getting injured. Not once, but just like if this was an injury-prone activity, I'd probably stop. But it's not an injury-prone activity for me, and I'm able to not have my blade get dull. Man, that sounds like I could be on a commercial on a NASCAR channel for men, old aging men with their dull blades in hand. I apologize.
Byron, I think one that you could add to this is unrealized expectations.
Ooh, I like it.
And it actually was burnout that got me thinking about this. It seems like the new people I see that come in and want to go 5 days a week right off the bat, and it's all about jiu-jitsu is my life, and they dive in too deep, I think, sometimes. And then 6 months down the road, 8 months down the road, it starts to sink in that this is a really hard activity to get good at, and it's going to be a really long journey. And I think the combination of burnout and I expected to be way better at this point. I've been going 5 days a week. I've been going for 8 months. I should be better than this. I think the combination of those two things probably contributes to a lot of the early dropouts.
So maybe this, as a gym owner or a coach, always be cautious of your students getting their blade a little dull, and why that's happening. You're losing business. You're losing customers. You're losing students. You're affecting less people's lives in a positive way if you do that. Gary, what would you see the main reason your blade would get dull? That just sounds like, I don't know, gentlemen. It's funny, I write this stuff down. I don't realize how much it sounds like erectile dysfunction until I read it out loud.
Yeah. Certainly whipping your blade out at the wrong time at the wrong place is.
Yeah, but what do you always do if you whip it out the wrong place at the wrong time? Root beers for everyone.
That's true.
Always works.
And sometimes a float.
That works well. Yep. But Byron, I would say, going back to what you said first, is getting injured. Especially at my age, I am getting injured a little bit more, and sometimes it is dulling my blade a little bit. And that's, I've had to figure out different ways to roll and change my mentality, kind of like what Joe was just talking about. I used to be all gung-ho and want to train every day of the week. And, I spent numerous years training, 5-6 days a week. And, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. My big trick that I have that I've avoided being injured for so long is every injury I get is 100% my fault. I just take responsibility. And if it's like, maybe my training partner's being reckless, shouldn't have rolled with them. Maybe I should have. Maybe if I am going to roll with them, they should know that I really can't be getting injured. Like, communications is a factor. But as soon as I thought about, no matter what happens, it's my fault, I stopped getting injured. I owned that result.
Yep, I remember the time me and you were out walking in the neighborhood, and a plane was flying overhead, and the engine fell, and it fell on you. It fell on your foot and injured you. And I remember you blamed yourself for being outside and walking.
Without my steel-toe boots.
Yep.
Got them on now. So let's jump on down here. Sun Tzu in the same chapter, and it kind of is more of a strategy thing. He talks about fighting with superior numbers or inferior numbers, and really, jiu-jitsu is one-on-one. It's not one versus 10 like Sun Tzu would be prepared for, or 1 versus 2. But we can learn from him in this. Line 8. It is the rule it is the rule in war. If your forces are 10 to the enemy's 1, surround him. If they're 5-1, attack him. If you have superior grappling, it's like if you have superior grappling ability, go for the first move. Attack without delay. If that's like 5-1, forces. If you are, a superior grappler, just go for the attack. You don't have to really worry about much. Continuing on here, if your numbers are twice as much, you divide up into, and you kind of attack them 2 different ways. And it's the same, if you're able to attack 2 different attacks at the same time, that's amazing. That's some good jiu-jitsu there. Now, can you do that on somebody who's a superior grappler? Probably not. They're going to shut you down. But can you do this on somebody who you're tricking, or like I was tricked on that stratagem example? I was attacked twice. Like you have Sun Tzu has twice as many soldiers as his enemy. Divide them up. Attack one from the north. Attack one from the south. There you go. Any thoughts kind of on this, guys? As far as having superior forces and comparing that to like superior grappling ability, because we don't fight. Joe and I aren't going to go roll it with Gary. I have to say, like, beat up on Gary together. That's not what we do in jiu-jitsu. But it's what happens in war. It's what happens, like, in business. There's no, you don't have twice, like, your competitor might have twice the advertising budget as you, or twice the sales force as you do, or deeper pockets, or a better region, or something. Like, these are things you have to deal with, and Sun Tzu gives advice on these.
I think you need good reconnaissance.
Ooh.
Really to find out how many, we're just talking about stratagem. So, okay, I see 500 people camped out over the hill here, so they got 500 forces. They didn't, you may have another 15,000 over the next hill that they didn't see, so, I mean, they're trying to play tricks on you if they have a good general. But, you brought in business and other stuff too. So, I do think, reconnaissance, you really have to get good scouting. You have to have good information. Jiu-jitsu, you watch film, you watch other matches this person has. A lot of times the school kind of rolls together the same. We have, if you're in a higher level, we have the internet today where you can Google your opponent and probably find some matches from him. You can check out his Facebook page and find some matches. But I think that will help you make some wise decisions to plan your strategy and stratagem.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Back in the day, and we could all remember it's not that long ago, like there was footage of the top grapplers online. But there's no reason if you're in a blue belt IBJJF tournament, the bracket comes out, you see who's in your side of the bracket, you should be looking them all up on Facebook, on Instagram, looking for what they're doing. You just get inside information right off the bat. And if they're posting that, that's good to go. That's nothing, you're not being, you're not cheating, you're not being ornery. And if you want to post a video of you doing, 40 different leg attacks and you suck at leg attacks, but the video looks good, there might be some stratagem there. Like they'll be worried about what you're going to do to their feet, and you're all about getting in the back. That's
I didn't think of that, but that's a great idea. If you have no wrestling ability and you love it when guys pull guard on you, put all over your Facebook that you wrestled in college, that you're a 3-time All-American. I love it.
A few recent pictures of you in your singlet,
Yeah, that's all it takes. You don't have to actually lie about your credentials. Just have a singlet when your ear protection on there.
Drinking a root beer.
Yep.
Drinking a root beer.
Hey, Byron, I was going to say that Sun Tzu's talking about armies and if one army has superior forces than the other. And I was thinking that one army may have a bigger, put it in more modern terms, a bigger army, a bigger navy, a bigger air force than the other, and each branch has more troops. But if the Army and the Air Force don't coordinate together, and the Air Force and the Navy don't coordinate together, and the different groups of troops within each branch don't coordinate well together, then you with your smaller army, if everybody has the same game plan, is on the same page, there's good communications, if they're all working well together, that can overcome the superior forces. And I think that we've often talked on here about everybody should have 2 or 3 reliable go-to moves from every position that you're going to find yourself in grappling. I think the earlier in that process, when you're starting to develop those techniques, the earlier you start to think about how they work together and how they complement each other is going to put you ahead in this regard as well.
Love it. That's,
I mean, if you got 50 different techniques, but they're all disjointed and they don't complement each other well, and I've got a dozen that kind of all flow together, you may still beat me, but I've given myself at least a fighting chance.
I put money on you, Joe.
Because I've got 12 moves.
That's a good amount of moves. I don't know if I have 12 moves that I would write down and say these moves are black belt level.
12 moves. If you can really execute those 12 moves, you're going to be a very tough person to beat.
Okay, I've got 2.
You're still going to be a tough person to beat.
I want to move on a little bit further down here. So Sun Tzu, in line number 9 in chapter 3, he says, so he's going down the, like, if we have 10-1 or 2-1 or whatever, he gets down to even. So if equally matched, we can offer battle. And this is jiu-jitsu. This is in the heart of competition. This is why we have a belt system that encourages matches that are fair or competitive. And matches like this, they help you grow. They help you learn. They push you to become a better competitor, a better grappler. This is what you should be trying to do. This, like, it's frustrating if you're 130 pounds and you get tapped up by the 200-pounder every time. Like, that's frustrating. But that's different than having a person in your weight class who's similar skill. That's where you're going to grow a lot from. That's where you're going to figure out what part of your jiu-jitsu works in that puzzle. And not that you can't grapple the bigger person, but I always really like the aspect of it. A pretty even matchup. To me, that's a big opportunity for growth.
I agree, and if you're not into competing, I think it's really valuable to kind of have identified. And I think it just happens naturally for most of us, but I think most of us could pick 2 or 3 guys in our gym that they're sort of like a yardstick. Might not roll with them all the time, but I like to get a good roll with them once in a while because we've been training together for a good long time, and the outcome of that roll can tell me if I'm gaining ground or if maybe they're gaining a little faster, and it just kind of helps me evaluate where I'm at.
Yeah, for an example, I've been working my body lock pass. It's going pretty good. I don't get, it's not the fastest pass in the world. And sometimes I take a step back. Sometimes it doesn't really work that well. But I was like, hey, Gary, I'm going to try this on you. He sweeps me 3 times in a row. Like, okay, that's a good measuring stick. Now, give me a month, Gary, and maybe you sweep me twice. Maybe you don't sweep me at all. And then maybe in another 2 or 3 months, maybe I pass your guard. I don't know. But, like, that was a great measuring stick because up until Gary hit it, and like, I was like, hey, let me throw this against Gary, see how it works. It didn't work at all. But I kind of saved that into the bank. And Gary told me what he was doing exactly. He was really open with it, which was very nice and generous. But, like, I'm going to come back to that, and I'm going to measure to see if my body lock pass has progressed against a game like his, which is he very easily and aggressively was able to sweep me. It's like, dang it, man, I've been working so hard on this, and it's just easy for him. So he showed me some stuff to look out for, which was nice.
But that's what I love about jiu-jitsu is all of a sudden it works for me, but then you go and reverse engineer it, and next thing you know, you're passing me. Then I have to up my game up, figure out a way to stop it again. Then you have to up your game up. It's a never-ending process, and that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. And I'd also like to throw a quote in here real quick. I mind when my mind gets broken mentally.
You're starting to break me, Gary.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue down with line number 9 here. He's talking. So we just talked about even numbers, and Sun Tzu says, if slightly inferior numbers, we can avoid the enemy. So this, he's talking about, at least for jiu-jitsu, was what he had in mind anyway, I'm sure. Avoid the head-on categories. Like, right now, I would not attempt to pass Gary's guard with my body lock pass. If this was like, if it mattered, if it was a competition, I'm for sporting or for education for myself, I do it for sure. But if like Gary's like, hey, let's do a match and to see who gets who, I'm not going to touch body lock pass because he's going to sweep me. So I avoid that category in jiu-jitsu and I try something else. So, and you could do this with techniques or positions, or maybe you're a faster grappler. Maybe they're a better grappler, but you could work speed, or maybe you could work endurance a little bit and get them to be tired, or maybe you get them to break mentally, and that's when they really start to mind. And then that will tip it back into your scale. Continue on with line number 9. If unequal in every way. So this is the white belt versus the purple belt or up. Like this is not going to go well. We can flee from him. And really, for sporting purposes, this is not what we're doing. We have, belt classes and age categories, weight, sex categories. Like we break it up to make the matches as equal and beneficial for both competitors as possible. But that also shouldn't be happening on the mats in your gym. Like if you're that white belt and the purple belts are just beating the crud out of you, that's wrong. They should not treat you that way. They should be helping you. You should get to do an occasional technique on them, if not plenty. I like to roll fairly even, which means when I'm rolling with a white belt, they might do 7 or 8 moves, and I might do 7 or 8 or 9 or 5. Like there's an exchange of techniques there. I don't want to just glue them to a bad position until I tap them. And so I do that pretty much as much as I can. I try, if I'm rolling with a brown belt, it's tougher, but I don't want to just get annihilated, but I do want some back and forth. And so it might be that the sweep that maybe wasn't perfect, I'm good with it, with letting them pull that off sometimes, or like, I'd say letting them, like brown belts sweep me all the time. But just, I want a competitive training session. And when you're the upper belt, that's on you to create that. Because you should sure shut it down a lot of times with the lower belts or with the smaller. If you're a big person and all your rules are easy, that's your fault. You need to be working from bottom out and that sort of thing. I did get off on a tangent there, but well, I just basically was saying in jiu-jitsu we try to avoid the matches that are unequal in every way. They're not sporting. They're not that interesting either.
Yeah, but there's still something to learn from here, besides, not creating that situation where someone's getting annihilated. But I think there's value in, like if your training partner has a really good particular guard, of learning how to avoid that, learning how to recognize when he's setting things up, and learning safe spaces, so to speak. Is that a political term these days? But like there's just certain places with certain grapplers you don't want to be. And so, like Byron, if you're leg dragging everybody, if you're doing it right, you're not just annihilating them, but maybe you're pausing at times and allowing them to start to recognize what's happening and find a place where they can defend. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I'm babbling.
No, that was good. If you're babbling, I've gone off the deep end on the babble end. So that's good, Joe. Just glancing down here, we have some interesting stuff on line 12, and it's kind of the way Sun Tzu talks about like hobbling your own army and doing things that do damage. And line 13, he talks about giving a command, and his example is to advance or to retreat, and it can't be done. Like, this happens sometimes at tournaments when you're yelling at a student, hey, do this technique, and they don't even know that technique. That's bad coaching. That's like Sun Tzu is saying, is like, that's bringing misfortune upon your army is what he calls it. And part of the way to avoid that is to know your students and know what they're good at. And the other part of it is to have a curriculum to where if I'm yelling, hip bump sweep, or I'm just something basic, like, I know that you know that move because we've taught it, multiple times, and you go to class. Like, I can't expect you to just read my mind if I'm yelling techniques at you and you don't know them yet. That's poor coaching. So that's one of them that's one of the big ones that I thought were in this chapter, as far as giving a command that your students cannot obey or that your army cannot obey. That's bad coaching. Well, let's wrap this up with line 14, which is towards the end of the chapter. I do urge you guys, if this is interesting, like this, the art of strategy is interesting to you, check out the text. It's free online. The book is thousands of years old. Copyrights have expired or never existed. No, but there were some translations that were up there. But anyway, line 14: by attempting to govern an army in the same way that he administers a kingdom, is being ignorant of the conditions which are obtained in an army, and it causes restlessness in the soldiers' minds. And that whole thing, I don't know how well that read, but when I read this, and it takes me like 3 times to read it and understand what it just said, and I apologize, but by attempting to govern your students in the same way, you're failing a large part of them, because they're not all the same. And the simple example is, some of them want to compete, some of them are very serious, some of them are hobbyists, and some of them are just doing this to lose some weight or to socialize. Like, if you treat the people who are there just to kind of get out of the house for an hour and a half and get sweaty the same way as you're teaching or treating your top tier competitors, that's a mistake. So that's what Sun Tzu is advocating, is how you govern the army based on what they're capable of doing or what they're there for is important. So it's kind of one for the coaches on that one.
Yeah, I heard one time, and it's in the context of an educator or a parent, but it's true of coaches as well. But it was something along the lines of, there's nothing more unfair than treating every kid the same.
Oh, I like it.
And from
it sounds weird at first, but it makes sense.
Yeah, from a coach's standpoint, you got to realize that some people will be motivated by sort of being called out publicly, and others will be humiliated and just leave. So some people react well to, really strong encouragement publicly, like when you're doing your warm-ups or strength and conditioning, and, one more, I know you can do one more. Some people respond well to that, and some people don't. So as a coach, the more you get to know your students, the more you understand them, the more you can communicate with them in the language that they understand.
I was reading an article once about a jiu-jitsu gym, and the coach, when he had a new student, would make him fill out a questionnaire. And the questionnaire, just had a bunch of questions like, what are your hobbies? How do you like to receive praise? Just different stuff. And I thought it was pretty unique. It reminded me of work. We've, in the workplace, I've always worked for companies that did stuff like that, but I never saw anybody bringing it onto the mat. And, I guarantee you that person is treating all of his or her students as a unique individual, getting to know them a little bit when they first start. And like Joe said, some of them would be embarrassed, would feel terrible to be called out, publicly, and, could lead to losing a student and, ultimately, hurting that person and losing a jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Gary, you got me thinking, man. How do you
I thought I smelled smoke.
Oh man, and a headache.
I've always been that person. I don't really like to receive praise. I've always told my bosses when I've had those questionnaires and stuff. To be honest, I don't really like it. Just keep it to
Gary,
you.
I mean, what would make?
But everybody's different.
Yeah,
everybody's different.
If we rolled, Gary, and you hit me with a guillotine, it's been done before, and I'm like, that was probably the best guillotine I've ever been caught in. I could do that, just tell you right there, and just give you that compliment, a little bit of praise.
Yeah.
I could, and this is something I don't do because I don't really do much online, but I could hop on Facebook and say, hey, Gary, man, that was an amazing guillotine, buddy. That was, and like publicly do it, or like it kind of in the middle is do it in class. Like, man, Gary had a great guillotine on me today, guys. So, good job for that, Gary. Like in front of a class of 10 to 20 people. Those are 3 different levels of praise.
Number one for me.
Yeah.
But everybody's different. I mean, there's a lot of people who would like that public one on the internet. There's a lot of people like, in front of the class. And I just think it's, I remember reading that article and I was thinking that guy's school is probably very successful.
Yeah.
His turnover rate is probably very, very low.
Coaches, if you give your students compliments publicly online, I think those students stay for a long time. Like that sounds like a powerful tool if they want that. But it just shows their friends and their family that you're getting better at this. And people, I think, sometimes crave that because they know it's a hard activity.
Yeah. And like you said, everybody's different. It's not like you have a whole gym of competitors. I mean, there's probably some school that, has all competitors. But the majority of the people are just going to be regular people who go to a 9 to 5 every day, go home to their wife and kids or husband and kids and just want to know they're getting better. They may not compete. They may only train once or twice a week, and just to get a little pat on the back or saying, hey, you're doing great, is going to go a long way to keep that person motivated.
Could you imagine what it would feel like you're fairly new at jiu-jitsu and one of the competitors at the gym who is upper level post on your Instagram thing, man, your spider guard is going awesome. Great work. Keep it up, buddy. Like, that's really nice. Like, and like you said, not everybody appreciates that, or maybe they get embarrassed, but a lot of people would really appreciate that sort of thing. I never really see that. I don't do it. I don't post things.
Yeah. Yeah. That would make a lot of people's day.
Absolutely.
I mean, it would, it's a bragging moment. You're bragging about that person. That person doesn't even need to brag to the rest of everybody else because you've already put that on their Facebook so everybody can see it. And, especially like you said, a big time competitor, or it doesn't even matter, just anybody who you train with, just throwing it. And it's not just up to the coach to give praise. I hear Byron give praise all the time. I know Joe does also. So in a gym, you can give praise to anybody. And always remember that it's not, the coach, it's important for the coach to give praise, but man, I think sometimes just getting praise from a training partner is even bigger because you don't feel like it's expected. Where, you're paying the coach, the coach is providing a service, and he wants to keep that revenue stream coming. But a regular student like myself telling Byron, or he's great, or he had a great move, or let's just say Byron's a black belt and I'm a white belt, and me just going up to Byron and just saying, hey, buddy, I really appreciate you taking the time to show me stuff. It's kind of hard. I'm a slow learner, and I appreciate you rolling slow with me and working with me when I have questions. That goes a long way too, just to make your gym a much better family, team-oriented place.
You know what I think absolutely the easiest thing to do is if you make it a practice and make it a priority. And I don't know of anybody who's opposed to getting this kind of praise. We talked about just the compliment after a roll. You can roll with anybody and find one good thing they did during that roll, and you get done and you just casually say, hey, when you were playing butterfly guard, man, you had really good active feet, or when you had me in the closed guard, I was having a hard time getting my posture back, man. I don't know if it's your grips or your technique, what you're doing right. You're doing something right there. It's really easy.
Yeah. What's the oddest compliment you've ever received, Roland? Mine was, I was rolling with a lady, and she said I smelled good.
Nice.
And that was a lie.
Okay.
No, but these are mostly good things, Gary.
Yeah. No, but the one thing I really didn't think about this art of war, of all the stuff we went through today, I think are good lessons for a gym owner to have a successful gym. You're basically the general, but, I just think these lessons is how to win a war, how to maybe win a match, how to win at life, or, how to make your gym a winning gym.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're doing the art of war, and none of us are competitors, and we don't have rival gyms like they do in the movies. So we're really talking about like our opponents are also our fellow soldiers. So
they're our buddies.
Exactly. So kind of interesting, and it brings me back to that quote. Iron sharpens iron. We're talking about complimenting our teammates and our training partners. The better they get, the better we're going to get.
Yes, sir.
Hey, speaking of rival gyms, Gary, I'm thinking about doing a dojo storm, and I'm being serious here, of the Hoo Hop Mongolian Grill near my house, and just getting a bunch of jutsu people to show up and eat dinner, eat a bunch of food. I'm thinking about that. That'd be fun.
Yeah, just make sure Joey Chestnut doesn't show up.
No. Hey, guys, real quick, we missed a month last month. I'm putting this one out as soon as I can. But we do have, if you want to support the podcast, we have a Patreon page. And we really appreciate our supporters. It seems like we used to be a weekly podcast. Didn't seem like that was the case. But it seems like we've lost a few supporters, which is fine. We've gone from weekly to a kind of a monthly thing. And sometimes we lose some, and sometimes a supporter will bump up their contribution, and it kind of counteracts that. So that's really nice of the people who have been able to do that. That being said, I kind of have a new plan I'm simmering on, and I think it would be kind of fun, is to continue to do this, get together with you guys and have root beers together and talk about jiu-jitsu or the art of war. But I also am thinking about doing a very short episode thing, almost daily, like a little 5-minute clip about a topic, and just crank out some, just to be. I think that'd be fun, and I've written down some topics that are pretty easy to come up with, and just record 5 minutes about this, about the time that this happened, or dealing with a stinky person, or what to do if you're late to class, or I'm just cranked out a few right there, but just 5 minutes, boom, sit down, record it, put it up, it's done for the day, And I think that might be kind of a fun way to kind of keep up with things and to just continue to do something more than once a month or even less than that. So I'm throwing this out to you guys. If Joe or Gary, you want to do a little, I think I'm going to call it like a BJJ Brick short, maybe, or I don't know.
Making fun of our height?
Yeah. See, BJJ Brick quickie. I don't know what it's going to be.
I like that one.
Making fun of our performance?
You're always fast with the submission. It lost me there. But if Joe or Gary, if you want to sit down and record, 3 or 4 of these and send me these, and you could even record on your phone in a quiet room, like little 5-minute clips, I'll put them up and publish them over the course of a week or whatever. And I think that'd be kind of a fun thing to do. I don't know if you guys have any interest in that, or if it's just getting together and recording like this occasionally is where it's at. But if you have a topic that you want to throw something out on, let me know and send me a little recording. And I'm thinking about this, and it might be doing this sooner than I guess, if I can get a couple hours free to do some recording and publishing.
Send me the first 1 or 2 that you do.
Okay.
And so I get a feel for what you're looking for, and I wouldn't mind doing a couple.
Cool.
Yeah, I actually think I'll probably do a couple.
And Gary, I know that. No, for anybody, and even for myself as well. Your phone has a voice recorder on it, probably, if not download an app, and just sit down in a quiet spot and just put down a few minutes of an idea of jiu-jitsu and what you're thinking about, and then send it my way, and I'll get it put up there.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, and I think that will be a way to continue to talk about jiu-jitsu on a fairly regular basis, and maybe provide you guys with more content if you're looking for that. So anyway, I was going to mention this. I'm not going to charge Patreon on these because it would rack up quick because it's per episode. So these would all just be bonus, guys. Yeah. What were you going to say, Joe?
Well, I don't know if you listen to many podcasts, but I have sort of a sweet spot for me. I really like 20, 30-minute podcasts. One thing you might consider doing is putting them out daily, like you said, but putting out a bonus, like a compilation of them as well.
Okay. All right.
Maybe not like necessarily every week. So people listen to 5 podcasts and then they could listen to all 5 at one shot if they wanted. Or you could just, like, at the end of each month, pick a half dozen or something that you really liked and put them in an episode.
Pick all of Joe's out and then they go in the same win the internet version. Well, guys, we got root beers to crack open. And until then, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to add the ice cream.
Train hard. Try not to train in the bar, and you'll get better and you'll stay safe.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can visit our website at bjjbrick.com for more good times. Swing by and like our Facebook page. Our email is bjjbrick@gmail.com.